Okay, it's time to go into our talk. Our theme is Crossroad. I've been talking with Rachel for a while now. She's actually one of the driving forces of Creative Mornings in that she supports our speakers. Rachel runs, and she'll tell way more about it, an amazing community. And with all that experience, she helps our speakers to be just a little bit better in storytelling and public speaking. So if you enjoyed some of the last speakers in the last year, she was one of the reasons. She was a really big driver in make sure that the talk is structured and looks very well. So I'm very stoked to have her here with us today. Give her a big round of applause. Rachel Smith.
I'm going to use my own microphone.
You have your own.
Because that's already been used by you. So I feel like it's your microphone now. You do have to give me the clicker, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing something a bit different today where I'm using my presenter notes. So it's like my little baby here in the crook of my arm that I'll rock back and forth as I'm speaking. Anyways, this is all new for me. So, I'm Rachel Smith. I have my name up there really nice and big so you can remember that. I'm an artist, an educator, and storyteller. I have been involved with storytelling for many years now, more than 10. Basically, people go, storytelling, speech, and then they get up here and they talk on and on and on and on and on. And it's not very interesting, so I can help you with that. But this isn't a pitch, okay? This is just what I do. So I also have, am part of what I do with teaching people how not to be boring is teaching them to trust the actual process. So Mark says, oh yeah, she coaches storytelling. I can only coach you to speak if you allow me to. Okay, so a lot of people will come up here and they're like, oh yeah, I'll get in touch with Rachel. And then they give me 20 minutes. And in that time, I'm supposed to help you out. I need 2 hours, guys. But that's what I do. That's part of my life and what I'm involved in. So when I'm doing storytelling, there are 3 main signposts because the theme today is Crossroads. So there's going to be a lot of bad references to Crossroads here. There's 3 kind of main things that I look for in a good story. First of all, a good story has to have a problem. Okay, your problem can be a lot of different things. Your problem can be that you're emotionally compromised. Your problem can be that there's an obstacle in your way. You have to get that MacGuffin before you can go on to something else. And somehow it's not easy. Okay, and sometimes your problem is that you're trying to force an idea that doesn't really belong there. Sometimes that's the problem too. A good story also has to have a risk. It has to have a risk. It has to have something at stake. If you get up here and there's nothing at stake, it's not really a story. Now that stake can be a lot of different things. It can be physical. Should I try this new and dangerous sport? What if I fall down and get an injury? Right? It could be, should I meet with that famous person that I really admire? What if they turn out to be an asshole? Right? Or it could be, should I brag of my expertise? What if I don't measure up? So there's always a risk when you're doing stories. Okay? And the last one is, well, actually in risk, there's something about risk that most people's reaction to it is, I will make a PowerPoint with lots and lots of words on it, and I will stand here and I will read it out to you. Well, nobody's going to object to it, right? Nobody's going to say, get off the stage, that's not very interesting. But it's not very interesting, nobody's going to remember it either. So let's try and be more interesting in the beginning, because interesting stories are what people remember. Boring stories are easy to forget. So every story also has to have a change. Okay? Now this change can be a shift in the storyteller's perspective. If the change isn't happening to you, it's not your story, it's somebody else's. If you're watching something like a car crash, I saw the other day, I was walking down the street and I saw a car crash. This car just came right by me and it hit the lamppost and oh my God, I didn't know what to do, right? Somebody else called the medical services and I went home, but I was really shaken up. It's not your story. It's somebody else's story. That's a report. You're just reporting, okay? It has to change you. There has to be something in there that changed you. It can be emotional change. It can be a physical change. I did break my legs going skiing. That's a physical change, right? But you probably had some kind of attitude change at the same time as well. So it's important to have a change. I'm making my thing move. You can't be a bystander in your story. Okay, now here we go again. I've coached people around the world. I've coached people. I've gone and told stories in India, South Korea, Canada, Morocco, Hong Kong. Very impressive, right? So, oh, right, I have to do that one too. That's why I don't do PowerPoints usually. So when Mark texts me on WhatsApp and says, hey, I'm planning ahead for Creative Mornings Hong Kong. I'd love to have you as one of our speakers. And I said the rest of this, because you guys can all read. You think right away, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally into this. I can do this, no problem, right? So the first thing I did was completely panic. Absolutely panic. I'm like, oh. First I was like, oh yeah, I look forward to it. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm nervous as all hell because I've got to stand up here and tell you I'm an expert in this. I mean, if a biology professor comes up and he does a really boring talk about biology, but it's really well informed, you don't think, God, that guy, get him off the stage, it's terrible. No, you think he's a biology professor. It doesn't matter if he can't speak well. But here I am saying, look at me, I'm really special. I'm a storyteller. I can tell stories all over the world. I better be damn good, right? You can see the nervousness. So the first thing that I do, because this is what happens in moments of crisis, is I immediately revert to high school. Speech class. Start with the definition. Crossroads. What is a crossroad? Crossroad is a metaphor. It's a metaphor for standing somewhere and you're looking and you're ready to move, but you're not moving. It's change, it's pivot points. Okay, I can do this. And I thought about this time, this thing that I've had for many, many years. I've got this motto, okay? Carpe diem. You guys all know this. It means seize the day. Because I had this romantic idea in my head that somehow creatives, artists, we're supposed to take risks. We're supposed to be the ones who jump off the cliff to see if the wings work. Because nobody else is going to do that. And we have to know because we're creatives and that's what we do. So I have this romantic idea, carpe diem, seize the day. And I think, okay, I can work with this, right? So what stories do I already have in the bank ready to illustrate carpe diem? Oh, I've got that story about, oh yeah, when I was 19 and I had this job working with elderly people, but I didn't know how to quit. So I moved to China because that seemed easier than telling them that I didn't want to go and see them anymore. Then I've got this story about my brother Aaron. He's my youngest brother and he died in a car accident 2 days before my wedding. Talk about a pivot point. Yeah, big happy day. Not so happy after all. In fact, I had an auntie who came up to me at a funeral and said, not quite the day you planned, is it? Duh. Right? Okay, and then there's a time in 2019, early in 2019, in January, when I started having panic attacks for no real appropriate reason, just panic attacks. And I decided that a really good idea to self-heal was I would do some self-art therapy rather than going to see a professional. I could tell about that. Those are all interesting stories. Oops. They all have change. They all, have all the right things, but I feel wrong. I feel like somehow I'm some kind of carpe diem motto salesman. Rubbish. Okay, the next thing that happens is, of course, the link goes live. I'm there panicking. Link goes live. Mark says, it's live. It's all good. Somebody posts on our stories WhatsApp group, hey, Rachel's going to be telling you the story. I'm just getting, more and more. So I'm in a frenzy now. When I'm in a frenzy, I have a tendency of just kind of going around in circles. You know, I'm a professional storyteller. I've got to be good. The pressure's on. I need to do a good job, not just for you guys, but for me as well. I mean, I need to be able to look myself in the mirror tomorrow, right? So I started to write. I wrote a 20-minute speech. One of the things that I'm trying to keep in mind, because I'm listening to some extent to my own voice, telling people what to do, keep your audience in mind, Rachel, because it's really important. I mean, I'm here with the microphone. I got all the power. I can say whatever I want. You guys have no voice, but you're giving me your time. And that's precious. That's important. And I've got to respect that and make sure that I do something with it. Keep your audience in mind. Okay, so I'm there writing, and I'm thinking, audience. I know. To get rid of these nerves, I'm going to test it on an audience of 1. That's the right thing to do, right? So I call up my friend Niharika. She's awesome. She's a great storyteller, gives wonderful feedback. And I write an email with the 20-minute talk that I've written down, and I send it to her. And as soon as I press send, I think to myself, that is rubbish. It's awful. I know it's awful. I know I've done a terrible job. Now she's going to read it, and I really respect her opinion. So I write her again. I send her a text message. I say, hey, I'm going to revise that this weekend. Don't bother. And she sends me a little thumbs up because she's awesome, and she knows what I'm going through. Okay? So that's me back to the drawing board again. I'm usually confident about doing storytelling, but I'm not this time. And part of the reason I'm not confident this time is I've got a secret. Many years ago, when Creative Mornings first started in Hong Kong, I was one of their speakers. Yeah, I did a really crappy job. I arrived with a migraine. That's not an excuse. It's an excuse, but it's not an excuse. I arrived with a migraine. I did a talk. I didn't know what I was doing. I waffled on for hours. I was so embarrassed. And so the pressure's on this time again. The pressure's on. I'm feeling pretty terrible about this. I did check online and see, no, that one's not online. So it has escaped. Okay, so I am nervous, and being nervous makes me anxious, and being anxious makes me reckless. Because there's this thing, testing the wings. I gotta do things that make me afraid, because if I don't do that, then what's the point? So I'm looking for inspiration, times when I was stuck before. I know. How about the time when I transitioned almost a decade ago from teacher, which is awesome, but not what I wanted to do, to artist. And here I was a person who was looking for something a bit different. I wanted to do something that scared me. I wanted to do something that would jumpstart my creativity and make me less afraid of doing things like showing you my artwork and having people say, that's nice. You know, it's a terrifying sort of thing to do, to put yourself out there. So I was looking for inspiration about a time when that happened to me that I could talk about in a story. And I remembered a time when I was standing there and there was a bunch of people around us. We're all chatting in a bar after a show. And somebody said, you know what Hong Kong needs? It needs flash mobs. And I'm like, that's what I need to do. I need to do a flash mob. I need to have something where I'm so scared of doing it that I just have to. And then I'm going to feel like a real artist, not a teacher, right? I need a flash mob. And so we're chatting and they're saying, what kind of flash mob do you think would work in Hong Kong? And we've got music. And I'm thinking, no, not music. Please, not music. And then we've got something else. And somebody says, you know, it's Hong Kong, the most Hong Kong thing I can think of. And this is before 2019, cockroaches. Cockroaches, they're everywhere. I hate them. They're in my house. Cockroaches. We got to do a flash mob around cockroaches. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on board with that. Right? I get to dress up as an insect. Sure, we'll do a flash mob on cockroaches. And before I knew it, I had 10 people 10 people who were joining me to do this flash mob. And I said, I'll make the costumes, right? And I'll be there. Great. So here I am, and I get to work. I go online and I put up a sign about cardboard. Anybody have any spare cardboard? Before I know it, I've got people calling me up saying, come pick up my cardboard. And I've got tons of this cardboard. I've got a little tiny studio, and my studio is filled with cardboard, and I'm spending way too much time I should be working and doing other things, with some really sturdy scissors, a knife, and a glue gun. And I'm making cockroach costumes, because we're going to take these costumes and we're going to go out, and there's going to be 10 of us, and we're going to run around the streets, and it's going to be amazing, and people are going to talk about it for years. I have no idea what I was thinking. Okay, but I'm making these costumes, and they're hard to make. And as I finish the first one, and then the second one, and the third one, I start getting phone calls from people. Oh, you know, I can't make it that night. I don't think I really fancy it anymore. And I know that this isn't really a judgment about my creative ability, but it is, right? It is. In my heart, all I'm hearing is, this is stupid, you're stupid, you can't do this. So it gets down to a couple of days beforehand, and I've got 3 people left. And I'm writing to them and saying, you know, we can just cancel this. I mean, I can just save the cockroaches for later. They're already in my studio, but whatever, you know, I haven't added the arms yet, so it doesn't count. I'm trying to make excuses, and they're like, no, we're ready for this. We really want to go. And now the pressure's on the other side, right? Because now I've got to show up with enthusiasm, like I care a lot, like I'm not dying inside. I've got to show up with my cockroach costumes and run around with these people. But they're spurring me on. I can't let them down. I can't let myself down. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to do, but it's also somehow really important. So on the day of the event, I load 4 gigantic cockroach costumes made out of cardboard into a go-go van, and I show up in a little park behind Club 77, which doesn't exist anymore, in Shenzhen. And we're in the little park, and I'm helping everybody to get their costumes on. There's Philippe, there's Nicole, and there's Anna, and there's me. And I help them get the costumes on, and we put the carapace on, and it's kind of a complicated process of Velcro and sticking things, and then I put the head on, which also attaches to the body with Velcro. Once you put the head on, you have almost no sensory information about what's going on, because it is a giant helmet. And it's cardboard, so it's noise dampening. And there's just a slit in the front where you can see out of. So our vision is fairly obscured, and I'm still kind of nervous. I'm still wondering how this is going to go. Is this going to be fun? This is supposed to be fun. And everybody gets their costumes on. They help me put theirs on. And we kind of look at each other like this, because we couldn't see. We kind of look at each other, and then Philippe puts his arms out, crouches down, and he's off. And he just starts running, followed by Nicole and then Anna, and then I pull up the rear. And there we are scuttling around Lang Kwai Fung. We are running up and down Peel Street. People are laughing. They're looking at us. They're going, what is this? They're looking for the video cameras. Oh, it's definitely a stunt for a commercial. Oh, it's this, it's that. Nobody knows. We don't say anything. We just run around, and we're having a great time. And we run around for ages. And I mean run, like we're full tilt running all the way around. And then we end up finally back at this park. And we take our helmets off with the assistance of the other people. We take our helmets off, and we're all sweating buckets and smiling and laughing, because that was really fun. That was ridiculous and fun. And I was so glad I did it. And I looked at these 3 other people who were there, and I said, thank you. Full of gratitude, full of just this joy of having done something that I was really afraid of doing. Now, the story doesn't completely end there. We did afterwards take the costumes off, kick them apart in an alleyway, and leave them for the real cockroaches to inhabit. Because what are you going to do with 4 giant cockroach costumes in your tiny studio, right? Now, the story involved a problem. The problem was mostly internal, but it was occasionally a bit external as well because of, people. It involved a risk, definitely a risk from my side, right? I'm risking my heart and soul. I'm risking, it involved a change. It's not a bad story. I definitely changed. I have a bit more confidence. I'm not going to put all of my artistic and emotional well-being into a cockroach costume, for one thing, ever again, although it is really fun. Okay, but it didn't end there. I wasn't thinking of the audience beyond my friends, but one thing about storytelling is about talking about something important to you. It's about holding up this tiny little spark of yourself and inviting strangers to judge you. Inviting strangers to say, hey, you're stupid, or you're wonderful. And if you do it with all of the elements of good storytelling, if you risk, there's a magic that happens. There's a real magic that happens. The magic is that almost always, I can't say 100%, but we're talking 99.9, it's given back to you. And that's where the magic happens. It's given back. People say, hey, you were willing to do that risk? Very, very few nasty, nasty people will say, Almost everybody says, hey, I see you. I saw your story. I felt it a bit. And that's the magic of storytelling. Each person hears in your story what resonates with them, what's important to them in the story. So the story doesn't end there. In 2019, this is the only surviving picture of the night. I have no idea who the guy is in the background. I don't even know who took the photo. So there we are in our cockroach costumes. And I was hosting a workshop for Hong Kong Stories in 2019. And this guy, we're talking about all the sorts of weird stuff that's happened to us in Hong Kong. And this guy says, don't get ahead of me here. This guy says, I was sitting in Lang Poi Fong a bunch of years ago, and these people ran by wearing cockroach costumes. I have no idea what it was. We watched them for ages, just running up and down the street. I have no idea what that was about, and I've never been able to find anybody who could tell me. And I didn't say anything. I just kept it to myself because it's mine. So at Hong Kong Stories, which is the storytelling group that I tell with usually, at Hong Kong Stories, we measure the success of a story not by how much applause you get or how good you feel afterwards, which is generally pretty good, but that's not a measurement. We measure it by if we find a connection with somebody. If somebody comes up to you after your story and says, oh my God, that happened to me, it's a good story. Just one person, it only takes one. Somebody comes up and says, oh, that really resonates with me. I've got a story that's similar. That's a successful story, okay? When you're talking about lecturing is about giving information. Journalism is about facts, but storytelling is about connections, about making true, real connections with people. And I was forgetting that when I was trying to write my 20-minute talk. And I was also forgetting one of my number one principles that I do tell everybody, and did I hear this voice in my head? I did not. Don't take yourself so seriously. Nobody else does. Just don't. I tell people that all over the place. Was I listening to myself? I wasn't. I was letting my ego get in the way, which was very silly. So in order to solve this problem, I met up once again with a couple more friends because collaboration is also really important. I met up with Niharika again. And on that day, Nance happened to be there, who's also a fabulous person. And I go up to Niharika, and I've been trying to write this 20-minute story, and I don't know what I'm doing. This is just stupid. And Niharika, who's very good, she says, now what advice would you give yourself? And I'm like, that's not fair. I want you to solve it for me. This is hard. And Nance is there, and she says, well, why don't you just tell the story about trying to find the story? And so that's what I've done. Thank you.
We got about 5 minutes left, so we have time for some questions if you have some or anything to contribute to the story that we just heard.
Yeah, thank you, great storytelling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of sharing. Like I actually belong to an organization called Hong Kong Players.
Ah, yes, I know you guys.
We do a lot of we do pantos every year. So costume skills definitely connecting with that.
We've been in contact before. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for the great storytelling and
Thank you.
Yeah, really enjoy your bravery. Walking down the streets, dressing up like that is not easy. So, good for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hong Kong Players is awesome. Do look them up.
Thank you. You mentioned the Carpe Diem moment. Do you think, because the one thing that with the Carpe Diem moment resonates with me is Robin Williams and Dead Poets Society, do you think that there's a comedian in you trying to get out?
Hold on. I have a lot to say about comedy and storytelling. Do you know, so we have a lot of interaction with the comedy group in Hong Kong as well, which they're fabulous as well, right? But I find comedy really difficult because it's not collaborative. You're competing against every other person who gets up on stage. And I feel like the best comedians for me are the ones who storytell. The ones I really dislike tend to be the ones that just have cheap shots about like my Chinese mother-in-law or learning Cantonese is really hard. But that's just my terrible take on comedy. But I don't know if I would ever want to necessarily bill myself as a comedian because it's a lot harder. Like it's really scary, but not in a good way.
You made us laugh. But could there be that, that saying, I'm a poet, but I didn't know it?
There's definitely a lot of the time when we do storytelling, the first story you come up and tell on the Hong Kong story stage is often a funny story because honestly, funny stories are way easier. A story where I have to really bare my soul. I'm shaking, as you saw earlier, and I'm nervous about it. I've told the story about my brother dying on stage before. I cried 3 times in public. It's hard. Telling a funny story is easier. But there's something wonderful about doing the hard stuff too. That doesn't mean that sometimes the story isn't also funny. Because humor is a way of breaking tension. Humor is a way of bringing people into the story. You don't want to hear all my tragedies all at once with no humor at all, because that's not very much fun. So there's some kind of comedy involved in everything. But as for a comedian, that's just setting yourself up for it's really hard. It's just, I want to run very far away from that word. Then people expect you to, the other thing is, I'm a storyteller. I can talk for hours about stories and loads of stuff that happens. Comedian, now be funny. That's really hard. So I avoid that label if possible.
Hey Rachel.
Hi.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this in your talk, but when did you start Hong Kong Stories? And has there been a story that has really hit you deep or impacted you? And what was it? Briefly.
There are so many stories. Hong Kong Stories was started, I think, in 2011 or 2012. It wasn't started by me. I went to in the second month, I think I went to a storytelling meetup and then ended up telling my story on stage 2 days later. And I was even more nervous than I was today. And I rocked back and forth so much. I mean, here it's hard because you've got 2 audiences and a pillar. So you're rocking back and forth so much that one of the feedback from the audience members all 7 of them. Audience member was, you made me feel a bit seasick, you know? So I try and curtail that as much as I can. This was not helpful for that
We're
part.
not setting you up for success.
But as for stories, I mean, there are so many, and you can listen to them on the podcast, available on all podcast providers. There are so many stories that resonate. The ones that really stick with me are ones where people have gotten up, they're clearly scared. They're clearly telling you something that is really important to them and really close to their heart, and they've gotten up anyway. And they've done it, and they've shared it with you and opened themselves up for that judgment, and it's given back. I mean, you guys are lovely, but we have better audiences, even better. Like, our audiences are just so kind and so wonderful. And seeing that movement, seeing that story, that storyteller, having all these people just listen to their voice, their story, their personal story. This is about me and my experience, and suddenly you're validated as a person by all these people in the room who are smiling and clapping and telling, you did a wonderful job. It's just so incredibly powerful. So there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of people as well that I know in Hong Kong Stories that have no idea what they do for a living, but I know that their husband eats apples in bed after he brushes his teeth. Or, just these tiny little moments of people's lives, but I don't know the usual things. So where are you from? So what do you do? Skip that. Go to the interesting bits.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Smith. And then time for the present. We have a little present for you. So here it is.
That's awesome.
So if you go on your website, there Rachel is a paper cutting artist as well. So definitely a lot of pressure on my side. Instead of usually I find inspiration from their work, I actually chose to tell my own Hong Kong story and integrated your podcast name into here.
It's awesome. Thank you. And if you don't know about paper cutting yet, do look up Nick's work and mine too. It's awesome. This is beautiful, Nick. That's lovely.
And look up your podcast.
Oh yes, HongKongStories.com. That's the Hong Kong Stories stuff. My website is here. My name is Senseless Art. You can find it there.
Perfect. Will do. One more big round of applause for Rachel.
Yeah, there should be like.